Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to our coffee times to talk about horror. And today I am here with my usual video every month to talk about new book releases. So today I'm gonna talk to you about some horror and thriller books that are going to be released in the month of August.
It's coffee time!
As always, I have tried to curate a list with a lot of different options, and this time around I came up with a total of 34 different books. So this one is going to be a little bit of a longer video, so grab your beverage of choice and let's get to it. Also, I apologize if you can hear noises in the background, but we have new neighbors and they moved in a couple of weeks ago and they are still drilling and hammering a lot because they have been building furniture and fixing things, which is completely understandable. So I'm gonna try to work around it today. I'm gonna try my best, but in case you hear certain things in the background, it's just the new neighbors. Let's start with a book that has a really cool cover, and that is Headhunters by Luis Paredes, and this is horror. What I know about this one is that Edgar is going to have to join forces with his best friend and her aunt because there is a big threat, a mantis. So this is kind of like a creature feature. We're talking here about a 10-foot praying mantis. And if you know praying mantis, you probably know that they like to eat heads. So Edgar is gonna have to find a way to save his family and himself from this threat. So I hope this is going to be a fun, entertaining creature feature. I think Edgar needs to join forces in the end of the day with other enemies from these mantis in order to defeat them. Such Charming Liars by Karen McManus, and this is a YA mystery thriller. Kat's life has always been just her and her mom, but then her mom, Jamie, married someone for only 48 hours, and during those 48 hours, she had a stepbrother called Liam. Kat's mom, Jamie, doesn't have the best job. So far, she has been just a jewelry thief, but she wants to leave that business aside and do something where she can get her money in an honest way. But she has one last job to do at a mansion. It is the birthday of a really rich guy, and Kat manages to tag along with her mom. But who is also at this party? It is Liam and his father, and they are also scammers. And if that was not bad enough, the birthday boy, the millionaire, dies in mysterious circumstances, and they have to figure out who is behind his death. This is not a dead girl story by Kate Sweeney, and this is another YA mystery thriller. We follow a teenage girl that is trying to find her missing cousin. Everybody assumes that the cousin is dead, but she needs proof. 8 days after the death of her boyfriend, Remy Green disappeared. Now her cousin is looking for her. Jules Green, she's the opposite of Remy, awkward and shy, and she has never really felt at home in the small town, but she always felt at home when she was with her cousin Remy. So obviously she really wants to find her, and she doesn't want to believe that she's dead, as most people assume. And through Jules' search for her cousin, we are going to discover really dark corners of this small town, a lot of secrets, and also Jules is gonna have to ask the question, did I really know my cousin? Was she hiding things from me? A Mask of Flies by Matthew Lyons, and this is horror. We follow Anne, and she is a criminal, but after a bank robbery goes wrong, she has to run for cover, basically to hide in her deceased mom's old cabin. So when she runs away from this bank robbery gone bad, she is with her wounded partner, as well as a police officer that she has kidnapped. As they're waiting for help, Anne starts to discover weird relics that used to belong to her mom and some secrets from her childhood. And as she's exploring things, her partner disappears. The book is a meditation on death, family, and grief. Crushing Snails by Emma E. Murray, and this is another horror book. Winnie is 16, but she's also a serial killer. And it all started when her father started to blame her for her mother's death and also physically abused her. So this book has quite heavy content warnings because let me keep explaining the story. After the father's punishments kind of lean into torture, Winnie starts to have really, really bad, dark thoughts. She feels a lot of rage, and the first thing that she does is she starts harming animals. And you can see where this is going because there's a lot of stories about serial killers, and the story always start that when they were kids they started to harm animals and small creatures, and it starts to develop into more and more. So you can tell that she's turning into a serial killer due to all the abuse that she has been receiving. The Unmothers by Leslie J. Anderson, and this is folk horror fantasy. A journalist goes to a small town and she will uncover secrets that the females from that town have been keeping for centuries. So our main character, Marshall, she is a journalist and she's going currently through a lot because she lost her husband, and so the company wants to give her an assignment to, keep her busy, so she does not focus on all the negative things in her life, and they send her to this small town where there is a rumor that a horse has given birth to a human baby. She thinks it's completely bonkers, she thinks it's not true, but she's like, okay, fine, I will go to that small town and try to figure out. She realizes very quickly that in this town people seem to love more horses than humans. But one of the things of the story is kind of true, that they have found two mangled bodies. One of them is a horse, one of them is human, and they're both dead. It is a tale about body autonomy, female rage, and generational trauma. The House Where Death Lives by Alex Brown, and this is a YA horror anthology. This is an anthology, a YA anthology of speculative fiction, and all of the stories are based around a house and the rooms that are inside of a house, and how a home can become a space of transition, both for the people that inhabit them as well as for the creatures that hunt them. Each story focuses on a different room in the house, and I believe there's also some kind of mythical stories in here as well, and a lot of creatures, so I love to see more YA anthologies coming out. Mystery Lights by Lena Valencia, and this is short horror stories. These are all stories by the same author, and it is set primarily in the desert, and it's mostly stories about women. It's stories about women and girls at the crossroads of mundane day life, as well as existential dread, and we deal with things that are familiar as well as fantastic at times. Letters to the Satin Purple Killer by Joshua Chaplinsky, and this is a horror. I'm really excited about this one because this sounds exactly like my cup of tea. It sounds exactly like the true crime book that I need to consume. We follow Jonas, who is one of the worst serial killers, more brutal ones that ever existed, and we follow him after he has been caught, and we get to read letters about his crimes. He has left corpses across 5 different states. He is responsible for the rape and murder of 23 women, but the police assume that there's going to be dozens more that they just don't know about yet. Because he leaves a piece of clothing inside of the bodies, that's where he got his name of the Purple Satin Killer. So after his arrest and him being now in jail, he starts to receive many letters from family members, from fans, from everybody, and those are the letters that we get to see in this book, and I'm really excited about this one. This is the ones that I am the most excited about for the month of August. The next one, I love this title so much. I love it so much. It could be a title of my life. This could be on my tomb when I die. It's called Here Lies a Vengeful Bitch. It is by Cody Crowley, and this is YA horror. It is what the title implies. It is a girl that has been murdered and she comes back for revenge. The only thing is, she doesn't know exactly who killed her. Annie has a very bad reputation at home, her mom is the worst, and her boyfriend is a cheater. So she's, used to be left behind. But now somebody has killed her. And even though she doesn't know who killed her, she's gonna make sure to find them and make them pay. Ghost Mother by Kelly Dwyer, and this is a horror mystery thriller. This is a psychological ghost story that blurs the line between reality and delusion. Lily is desperate to have a baby and she's struggling with infertility. Now her husband has gotten a promotion and a new job somewhere else, so they have to relocate. And Lily falls in love with a house that needs a lot of work. And the husband, feels really bad for Lily because they're struggling with infertility. So he, in the end, buys the house for them, even though it's very expensive for all the work that the house needs. When they move into the house, they realize that there was, in the 50s, a triple homicide slash suicide, and they start to feel uncomfy about it. Lily starts to see things, and she believes that she has had an encounter with a ghost, and the husband believes that she's just losing her mind. This one is perfect for people that love that classic Gothic fiction. Eye of the Beholder by Emma Bamford, and this is another horror mystery thriller. This is a novel about the beauty industry and about ghostwriters, and it is actually inspired by Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo. Maddie is hired to be the ghostwriter of a very famous cosmetic surgeon, and she goes to this doctor's house in Scottish Highlands. And the deeper she digs into the story, because obviously she's there to take notes about the story to write the book for her, the deeper she digs, the more elusive the doctor becomes. As Maddie is in the house, she believes that somebody else is watching them as she is performing the interviews with the doctor, and there is something that she knows the doctor is hiding, something that maybe involves the whole kind of beauty industry. Drill by Scott R. Jones, and this is cosmic horror. Some people are afflicted by a parasite that lives inside of you and feeds on your grief. It feeds on your suffering and it destroys your family. But there is a sorcerer that can fix this affliction. Now, this one sounds weird and bonkers, and I am not the huge fan of cosmic horror. I've said it many times before, but I thought this might be an interesting read for those of you that love cosmic horror. Blood Like Mine by Stuart Neville, and this is horror mystery. On a December night, single mother Rebecca crashes her car into a snowbank trying to avoid hitting an elk. On top of that, Rebecca is at wit's end. She has problems, with money, with getting enough food, and she's kind of running away with her daughter. Rebecca's daughter is running away from a really grisly secret, and law enforcement might be right behind them. We also follow FBI agents as they are trying to find the killer responsible for several deaths that all have the same modus operandi. The victims have all been drained of blood, and then their spinal cord has been severed. So this is a cat and mouse kind of game where nobody is safe. It sounds like horror with a lot of, detective, because we have FBI agents. So it's kind of like a crime horror thing, and I love the blend of those two. A Family of Killers by Bryce Moore, and this is YA horror. This is the story of America's first serial killer's family. Warren has always thought that he's a very decent, good person, but lately he has this voice in his brain, in his head, telling him to do unspeakable things, violent things to those around him. But then the rumors start about people that are going missing. Does Warren have anything to do with those missing people? Warren's dad goes to investigate, but he never comes back. Warren also decides that he wants to try to discover what's going on, why are all of these people missing, as he is fighting as hard as he can the voices in his brain. House of Bone and Rain by Gabino Iglesias, and this is a horror thriller. This follows a group of teenage boys in Puerto Rico that are seeking for revenge after the mother of one of them is murdered. We follow childhood friends in Puerto Rico, and they have always been surrounded by death. We have hurricanes, we have car accidents, we have gang members, deals go wrong. But now one of their moms is just shot dead. And the kids realize that they have to find whoever is responsible for it and make them pay. As the kids start investigating, they are interrogating people, they're getting names, they're getting details, and they realize that the guy that killed the mother works for one of the biggest drug dealers of the country. Nobody has ever survived going against these drug dealers, and so the kids want to strategize and try to figure out a way to make them pay. So they're very determined. They're like, are you the kingpin? I don't care. You killed my mom, you have to pay. And I love that for them. Heads We Roll by Josh Winning, and this is horror, and I believe there is an edition that did come out on the 30th of July, I think, but this is the edition that I want and that I am getting, so I have to wait a couple of extra days still to get this copy. Willow is really scared of being cancelled, And after some video that shows her drunk and, doing stupid things circulates online, her PR team are trying in any way possible to rescue her reputation. So they send her to Camp Castaway, which is a place for people to recover. People that don't want to get cancelled, and she even sees people that she knows there. But the trick of the camp is also that there's no phones allowed, so there is no way for them to communicate, to have access to the internet and all of that. So it's kind of like a detox in general. However, people are starting to get murdered in this camp. So now they have to survive, and I like that we already know that they don't have phones or anything like that, so it's gonna feel a lot more old school in a way. And this is about a summer camp kind of thing, so it is the perfect read, I think, for summer. So hopefully my copy will come on time to still read it during the month of August. The Dark We Know by Wen Yi Lee, and this is YA horror fantasy. We follow Isadora. She's bisexual, and she's very happy that she got to leave her hometown because it was a very repressive mining town, and also she lost two of her best friends, so it was a lot for her. So she's happy that she was able to move out of there and move on with her life. But when Isa's abusive father kicks the bucket, when he dies, she decides to come back to the town because she feels a little bit safer, plus she needs to get the inheritance. But then she meets a medium that tells her that her friend's ghosts are communicating with her and they want justice. The friends tell the medium that they were murdered by a supernatural entity, so Isa is gonna have to put a stop to that evil before it takes more people's lives. Through the Midnight Door by Katrina Monroe, and this is horror fantasy. It explores the sometimes fragile bonds between sisters and also the trauma that is passed from generation to generation. We follow the Finch sisters, and they live in kind of a dying town, and there is a lot of abandoned properties. So they love to spend the summer exploring those abandoned properties, but there is a very special one that they enter where, going through the rooms, they experience really interesting horrors. They swore never to speak of it again, but now one of the sisters, years later, has committed suicide. And a lot of the secrets, memories, the horrors that they had to go through when they were younger come back. Dear Hannah by Soje Stage, and this is a horror thriller. This is, I believe, a follow-up of Baby Teeth. I personally read Baby Teeth and it was not exactly my cup of tea, but I know a lot of people loved it, so I'm pretty sure a lot of people are excited to get a second book based on one of the characters of the first book, and that character is the kid Hannah. When we met Hannah in the first book, she was just a kid, and now we are 16 years later, and Hannah is still going to therapy. I don't want to talk too much about book 2 because I don't know if it's gonna spoil a lot of things from book 1, but in the first book, basically, we had a mother that was convinced that her own kid, her own daughter, was plotting to kill her, and it was an interesting book, but I felt a little bit underwhelmed personally with the horror. But like I said, many people loved it, so if you did, now you can get to part 2. Under the Surface by Deanna Urban, and this is a YA horror thriller, and I'm really excited for this one because it takes place in the Paris catacombs. It is a survival story of 4 teens that get trapped inside of the Paris catacombs. So we follow teenagers that are going with their school, I believe, to Paris for a trip, but then they decide to do something different and they meet a French guy, and he tells them about this party that is going to take place in the Paris catacombs, and of course they have to go. The problem is they never get to the party. They find themselves lost inside of the catacombs. That sounds like a nightmare. That sounds really claustrophobic, and I'm really intrigued about it. Plus the cover is fantastic. The Murders in Great Diddling by Katarina Vivald, and this is a cozy mystery. We follow a writer. She's on a deadline, she needs to deliver the next book, and she decides to go to a really small village because she knows that there is many stories that come from these type of places. There is a big explosion in the manor's library, the manor of this village, and there is now an investigation going on because somebody died during the explosion. So I think This is like the author studying the villagers, the outsiders, and all of that in this kind of like murder mystery. So if you're looking for a cozy read, this might be perfect for you. When You Leave, I Disappear by David Niall Wilson, and this is a horror novella. We don't know much about this novella, which I guess it's a good thing because the less you know when something is short, the better. And we follow a best-selling author that suffers from imposter syndrome, and that draws her into really dark places, and she might not be able to escape it. Then we have Clown in a Cornfield 3, The Church of Friendo by Adam Caesar. This is YA horror, and of course I have it pre-ordered because I have really enjoyed the other two books. I know they're not for everybody. I think the opinions are a little bit divided, but I think it's a fun summer slasher. In the first book, we follow Queen that moves to a new town with her dad, and they start realizing that the people in town are a little bit weird, especially the older generations and the younger generations don't seem to get along. Actually, they kind of seem to hate each other. But there is also clowns in this town. We have Friendo, obviously, and during a teenage party, there's kind of like a massacre, hence the slasher part. And it takes place, like all the action and the slashing takes place in a barn in like cornfields, so it feels very much like a summer slasher, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm really excited to see what happens in book 3 and to complete the trilogy. We Love the Nightlife by Rachel Coller Croft, and this is fantasy horror with vampires. London, 1979. Two women fall in love in a disco dance floor, but one of them is an old vampire, and she ends up turning the other girl. That girl is Amber from America, so she gets offered eternal life, which she accepts. But now it's been 50 years and she wants to live her life by herself. She realizes it's not going to be easy to leave the one that created her because people that have tried to leave her always ended up dead. Sacrificial Animals by Kaylee Pedersen, and this is queer horror. This is a supernatural horror debut that is actually inspired on the author's story because she was adopted from China and ended up living with her adoptive family in Nebraska. And it does have a lot of Chinese mythology induced into the story as well. American Horrors, The Dead Children's Playground by James Kane, and this is supernatural horror. Kylie is desperate to finally have a normal life. The family has relocated from Florida to Alabama, and Kylie, who is now 9, is finally on cancer remission. She makes a new friend, but the playground that they choose is the cemetery. And there's gonna be ghosts that try to communicate with Kylie, and she's going to learn a lot of things about the people that are buried there. 1 Hour Left by Vincent Ralph, and this is a YA horror thriller. They say this is Errol Stein meets urban legend. 16-year-old Nate grew up in a street where people rumored that there was a ghost living in it because it's a cursed street, and that ghost is the Hiding Boy. It is a vengeful spirit, and every year one of the houses from that street has some sort of tragedy. Nate's family decided to move to a different town in order to avoid the curse, but then Nate meets some friends and they invite him to join the Urban Legend Club, where he learns about more, stories, more legends, more curses. I guess it's not that easy to escape now, is it? Creeped of the Moon Spider by Nathan Ballingrud, and this is cosmic horror novella. So another cosmic one for you guys out there that love it. They say this is for people that love taking Fisher, and it is about a woman that is committed into an institution because people believe that she is mad. To treat her depression, Veronica has been sent to basically a psychological institution, one of these asylums that actually performs really bizarre experiments on people. They use the silk of a certain type of spider because they believe that is able to cure people's brains. So I don't know how much of this spider and brain combination there's gonna be in this book, but that might be a little bit too eek for a lot of people. Come Out by Natalie C. Parker, and this is YA horror. A book about queer teens that accidentally invoke a twisted spirit that promises to help them, but has other plans. So we follow these queer teens that became friends because they all had the same fear, which is to reveal their real identities to their families. And because of that, they always met in the woods in this abandoned house, and they had their meetings there and they used to hang out. But one day, one of the friends never made it back home from this abandoned house. 5 years later, a spirit of someone that looks exactly like the missing friend appears. Now they're being hunted by their own friend and they will have to face the monsters of their past. So this is a book that delves deeper into queer identity. The Madness by Dawn Kurtagic, and this is horror with vampires. Mina receives an email from her friend Lucy, and Lucy needs her help. So Mina decides to leave her practice behind and go to help her friend. She discovers that the symptoms that Lucy has are very similar to one of her mysterious patients, one of her patients that suffer from amnesia. So now we have two women with an untreatable sickness, and Mina's gonna have to figure out what's going on with them. The Queen by Nick Cutter, and this is horror. This is the story about a young woman trying to look for her missing friend when she will uncover a really shocking truth. It is a sunny morning in June when Margaret discovers a phone that has been left at her doorstep. It is a new phone and it has a message from her missing friend. A lot of people in town, including the police, think that her friend is dead, even though she's only been missing for 1 month. But Margaret's friend has a very dark secret, and that is why she leaves that cryptic message in that new phone at her doorstep. We're Hunted by Tomio Yimakinde, and even though this is a sci-fi YA book, I wanted to mention it because it's supposed to be a blend between The White Lotus and Jurassic Park, and it sounds really cool. We follow 17-year-old Femi, and he goes with his dad to a business meeting, but that meeting takes place in a very mysterious and isolated island. The island has a resort with out-of-this-world technology as well as very interesting animal species. Something happens that puts the whole island into a lockdown. So now they're trapped in there with all of those species, with all of those animals. But it's not just that. There is a very dark secret in this resort, and they're gonna have to figure out what it is before it's too late so that they can survive. He Hears Death by A.L. Davidson, and this one was intriguing to me because this is about a guy that is an embalmer. And I don't know if I've read any books about embalming or doing that as a job. And that sounds horrifying, but interesting. We follow an embalmer and he is unable to live a normal life anymore because he hears the voices of the deceased corpses that he processes. He lost the love of his life 4 years ago, so now all he does is fix the bodies of other deceased people and just deal with his loneliness. I also assume this type of job is very isolating and everything is quiet, obviously, around you. So it might be, like making your loneliness more like enhanced. And if that was not enough, there is an entity, there is a ghost that is now also hunting him. Alright you guys, so those were all the books that I wanted to mention that are coming out in the month of August. Let me know down below which ones are you the most excited for, and also if you have other books that are coming out in the month of August that I did not mention that are thrillers or horrors, leave them down below so people can get even more recommendations. I think there's a couple here that I'm gonna get for sure because I'm really excited for them. The one that I have pre-ordered is just the third book in the Clown in a Cornfield trilogy. The other ones I will see, but there is many potential good books this month. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I hope that you found something in this list that you want to add to your TBR pile. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!